Hi, I would like to welcome you guys to a professional development dealing with inclusion in the classroom, specifically co-teaching between general education teachers and special education teachers. And before I even start or say too much, I want you to talk in turn to your neighbor, and when I say the word co-teaching, I want you to tell me one word or one phrase that comes to mind, and go. Okay, I heard collaboration, I heard work, I heard tag teaming, shared responsibility, sharing your room. Okay, so we kind of have an idea in our head of what we think about whenever we hear that term. I just want to tell you what brought me to choosing this topic. If y'all remember, a couple of weeks ago I sent out a needs assessment because I just kind of wanted to get a feel. We don't actually have inclusion on our campus, but I wanted to see what you guys thought about that, what experience you had, and I found out that over half of you had at some point either experienced co-teaching or at least observed it. Here's just a little bit of my data that I chose to show you. Like I said, over half of you had at some point have some experience in co-teaching. I asked you about the models because that's going to be a big part of my presentation, just showing you that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak, so that you kind of help you see co-teaching in a lot of different forms. And most of you had heard of the models. And then this was also very important to me, talking about an active learning support team. That we were kind of in the middle here. 33 agreed, 22 disagreed that we did or did not have that type of environment here. And this was an important question for me because in order for inclusion to work, that's actually what an active support team would look like. So I definitely wanted us to, I wanted to kind of see where y'all were feeling about that. So besides the needs survey, from a personal standpoint, you know, I forgot to tell you that y'all know, but I'm Casey Reed, and I am the resource teacher here at Advantage Charter Academy. And so on a personal note, I see the disconnect between our special ed and our general ed, and that's what led me to this desire, because I have been in a school before where inclusion was present and I saw a lot of the benefits to that. So that's kind of what brought us here. So let's just jump right in, and I want to talk about what co-teaching and inclusion actually is. As I stated earlier, it must include two teachers. A general ed teacher that would focus on the curriculum type things, the scope and sequence, the structuring of the curriculum, and then the special ed teacher who would focus on and bring her knowledge to the table about IEPs and individualized education for all and what that would look like. The actual instruction must be delivered where both professionals are actively involved. This is huge because I feel like a lot of us have maybe experienced an ineffective co-teaching where you see the general ed teacher up front maybe and the sped teacher in the back, maybe every now and then working with one or two students. I want you to get that myth out of your head because that is not what effective co-teaching looks like. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but I just want you to right off the bat know that when I'm talking of inclusion and co-teaching, I'm talking of equal partners. And co-teachers should do just what the co says. They should co-plan, co-instruct, and co-manage. And we're going to kind of talk about what that would look like. But before we do, I want you to know that I do not think that this would be all unicorns and rainbows. I know that there are barriers. I do not want you to look like this when you're 39 years old because I know teaching can be stressful, and it can especially be stressful when you're sharing a classroom with someone all day. I know that there's limited resources. I get it. Curriculum, training, I get that there's scheduling issues. It would take it's a huge undertaking to make this type of format work, lack of planning time, because in order for inclusion to be effective, you have to have that planning time. The planning time is key. We have different philosophies, different personalities. I believe we're all here for the same reason, for the good of our students, because we want to be effective teachers, but we all go about that many different ways, and we have many different personalities. We have introverts and extroverts and all of those things, and you can clash and butt heads, and that could be an issue. Lack of administrative support. If we don't have that, we're dead in the water. We need our principal and we need our deans to be on board supporting us, to help us with those things we mentioned earlier. They're the ones that are going to help us with the resources and the scheduling and the planning time. So we would have to have them on board. And again, I kind of mentioned this a bit ago, but I'm going to keep reiterating it, that the barriers, or there's unclear roles of what the general ed teacher and the special ed teacher do. But I think if we can get rid of that misconception, it would no longer be a barrier. And so let's talk about some essential components of inclusion, what we would have to have for this to be effective here in our classroom, in our school. We'd have to have that administrative support, just like I mentioned earlier, those resources, that ability to plan and the schedules. We would need our administration to offer further professional developments for training and opportunities to observe this in action. Planning time, we have to have it. We have to plan on who's going to teach what subjects, what curriculums. Classroom management, this is a big one. We would need to determine a behavior management system, what we would want our classroom to look like, the two of us together. Communication, co-teaching cannot work without good communication and honesty. Flexibility, guys, we know we have to be flexible in the classroom no matter what, but just to be doubly flexible, knowing that you're sharing all of that with all the things, the responsibilities, the grading, the teaching, the assessing, all of those things. We would have to be flexible, and we would have to be compatible. Who wants to spend every day, all day, 9 months of the year with somebody that we don't get along with? In order for co-teaching to be effective, that person needs to be your best friend, at least whenever you're at work. All that to be said, that's easy to say we need those things. Well, how do we get there? Well, here's some steps to successful co-teaching. We have to establish rapport before the students ever enter the classroom. You need to get to know your co-teacher. Spend time with them. Know about them personally, their family. Do they have children? What are their hobbies? What do they like to do? And form that relationship with them. Get to know their personalities. Get to know the things that they like and don't like. Identify each other's teaching styles and what you guys can both bring to the table, how you're alike, how you're different, and how you can gel those things together to make a cohesive classroom, knowing that you have anywhere from 25 to 30 students who don't all have the same learning styles, and how they can benefit from both of you. Discuss your strengths and weaknesses. Be honest with each other. This goes back to that communication. I can be honest and share with my co-teacher. My strength is ELA. You want to talk about grammar? I'm your girl. Parts of speech, reading and writing, I love it. Math, not so much. Math would be a weakness of mine. Talk about that with your person. Talk about that with your co-teacher. Find out what subjects you excel in, what subjects you enjoy, and find out how y'all could work together. Discuss IEPs and general education goals. The regular ed teacher did not go to school and learn how to write IEPs and know what goals and objectives were and how those are met. Go through it with them. Take an IEP. Walk through the steps with them. Explain to them how they work and how you go about achieving those goals and objectives. In the same token, general educators have goals in their classroom. We have LEAP for our 4th grade and up. We have our interims. We have our other state tests for our little people. We have goals and objectives that we need to make that the special ed teacher might not be aware of because they're not used to that role. So talk about those things. Formulate a plan of action and act as a unified team. Figure out how you can best work together and come alongside each other to meet these goals and objectives. And take risk and grow, knowing that it's not an exact science, that you're not going to get it on the first shot necessarily, but be willing to, excuse me, see what works and see what doesn't work, and then grow from that. And when you do, friends, I promise you that you can see the benefits. And there's lots of benefits for teachers. That shared responsibility and accountability, knowing that you have a second pair of eyes, a second pair of hands to help you plan and write lesson plans and do small groups and make centers and all of those things, and someone to hold you accountable to doing your job and doing it right. It's easy to get lazy. It's easy to get lax. It's easy to get burned out with behavior. But to have someone there with you all along the way encouraging you, that's a good benefit. Same thing as I was just saying, the morale and burnout. You have another person right here with you, helping you, taking on half that burden, and that can't help but make you want to be a better teacher and give you a little bit of encouragement. And then the increased use of instructional strategies. I kind of shared that a minute ago. Gelling these two knowledges of these two teachers and sharing all those experiences is a huge benefit. And not just benefits for the teachers, but benefits for the students, because even though they're in one classroom, they still get that increased individualized attention because they do have two teachers. You have two teachers looking in and seeing and observing and keeping you on track, so the opportunity for that individualism is still there. Reduce negative behaviors. I hear all the time that my students that I pull out for resource can't go on the field trip, or they're in trouble, they're Mr. McCoy, or they're in detention. I don't have any trouble with them when I pull them, because this is a safe place when they come in my classroom. They're on the, they are not behind. They're working in small groups. They know when they're in the classroom they can't read, a lot of them. So instead of doing what they're supposed to do and trying, they act out of frustration. But what a beautiful picture that is when you take all that away, and it's a classroom environment that is set up to cope with all different learnings, from the lower to the upper to the enrichment. We don't want to forget about those guys, pushing those guys up. And that improves your self-esteem and your social skills, because they're not pulled out. They're not going to special ed. They stay in their same classroom and they still get their needs met. So just a little bit of a recap of our components: co-planning, co-instruction, co-assessing, and co-managing. Deciding who does what when. And the assessing part, formative, summative, knowing that you can right off the bat, you can do those exit tickets and all the different ways that we assess behavior. You have two people doing that, as well as co-managing the classroom. And so I want you to see that, like I said earlier, there is more than one way to skin a cat, and that all of these co-teaching models can be used interchangeably, and I believe that they should. We're going to talk about 5 models, I believe, 5 models, and these two I kind of combined. The one teaching, the one observing, the one teaching, the one assisting, kind of self-explanatory. One teacher's in the front teaching, the other's in the back, not on her iPhone, checking Facebook, but she's back there observing, seeing who's on task, maybe checking data, seeing what's going on, looking to see who's getting it and who's not. Along the same lines, one teacher, one assisting, the teacher's up front teaching, the other teacher's going up and down, kind of maybe pulling a few to the side when they're struggling, kind of getting them on track. Just again, another set of eyes circulating the room, because both teachers are well aware of what's being taught. That teacher that's assisting isn't just coming in off the street. She knows the curriculum. She knows the lesson that's going to be taught, and she can assist the lead teacher for all practical purposes. She can lead the teacher effectively. This next one, I know so many of us do this in our class already, especially our K2 people who have paras. These station teaching, we call them centers, those center rotations where you usually have a group with you and then you have the independent stations where the kids go. When those of you who have pairs, they have a group, kind of same thing. I love this, because you have the opportunity for that rotation, those independent work, but then you have two small groups working, and it's a beautiful thing. And this just kind of shows you, you know, what you already know, how centers look, and then there's that rotation. Each center lasts maybe 15 minutes, and then that rotation goes, and you switch, and you end up seeing all the groups, and then at times they're independent working. Well, if you have 4 groups, you have 2 with you, one teacher's watching that independent group, other teachers watching that other group, much better chance of things being effective. Parallel teaching. This is something to think about. You notice these 2 teachers, they're in the same classroom, but they're divided. They're teaching the same material, but maybe this group might be a little bit lower, or maybe this group might have gotten it and needs to be pushed to the next level. Same material, same subject, but just at the same time. I love this opportunity, and it works well. I know we would need big classrooms, but our kids are used to that. Our kids are used to intervention. Our kids are used to more than one person being in the classroom at a time. So this could be a very effective way to co-teach. The next one is alternative teaching, where you do have your lead teacher that has the bulk of the class that understands maybe, and then a small group down here that maybe didn't get it. On the flip side, most of the class got it. This group really got it, and they can be pushed up a little bit, because guys, I don't want us to forget our enrichment people. I don't want us to always think about the ones that are struggling, that need the extra help, because those few that sometimes really get it, they can be pushed. And I would have to say, because of my personality, I really like this model. The team teaching, where both teachers are up front and they're going at it, back and forth. Still had to have planning going on, still had to decide who was going to do what, but you have 2 teachers up in the front of the class. Maybe one is handling the anchor charts or the manipulatives or whatever it might be, while the other's writing, but you have 2 people in front working with you. Okay, friends, so I say all this to say, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. I don't want you to think that I think that we have a broken system, or that what we're doing is not working. I'm just trying to offer another opportunity to help those flowers that are not blooming bloom. That would be my goal. And in order to help you kind of see that, I've provided some opportunities to say that this can't just be the end. We can't just, y'all come in here and talk with Miss Reed and be done. We would have to be active in working with our administration, in forming teams, and working with the teams and getting them trained, and providing opportunity for planning, for coaching, and for implementation. I provided you all with a packet. It's a packet I actually found on Teacher Pay Teacher that I couldn't have done any better myself, that has tons of forms and resources, including an inclusion Facebook group that shares a link that you can join to get ideas, and even some professional development that way. But there's several videos that I've listed some links to. There's some great book studies that I would love to lead for further professional developments that focus on co-teaching that works, that actually have discussion questions that we could come together and talk about. Again, the handout, these are from the Teacher Pay Teacher, description of what co-teaching is, a lesson plan template that would be cohesive to both, questionnaires, checklists, study notes, just everything you would need to help you build that rapport with your team teacher and come up with a good action plan. Because I would like for this to be a goal for our school, for us to, in the near future, consider inclusion for some of our students, particularly our special ed students. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. I'm also going to provide a link for you to fill out a questionnaire, just a real quick survey of what you thought about today, what you got out of it, and maybe what I could do differently, or what you would like to learn from this. So if you wouldn't mind filling out the survey and filling it out, as getting it back to me as soon as you can, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for your time.